Actually talking about, it's not methods and tools, it's actually the introduction to the new extensionist. And this is part of what we have started within AFAAS as a set of master trainers, but we would also like to provide training for others as well. So we first had a poll. We were interested to see what your education level is, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to add the poll to here, because I'm not seeing. Okay, here we go. More. Hide video panel. No. There's the poll. Okay, this is going to be a participatory webinar. I'm not sure how it will work for those of you who have handheld devices, but go ahead and look at the screen. There's a poll on the screen, and you can tell us what is your highest level of education. So I'm going to hit 1 and submit. And let's see what the others also do, if you get a chance. I see that there's a group of people there with Beatrice, so maybe you can tell us what is your most frequent, highest level of education there. Because we're starting late, I don't want to take up too much time here. So, okay, so what is your highest level of education? Those are the participants who are here on the webinar right now. 40% have MSc, 40% have PhD, and some others have other. Possibly that's an honors degree or primary school, I'm not sure. You can use the chat box also to continue to discuss and to ask questions during the webinar. But let's get started. I'm going to see if I can close this and move on. A little bit of webinar etiquette. I think we're fine with that, to keep yourself muted, video off if possible, and use the chat box for discussion. What we're doing here with AFAAS, and facilitated by Andre, thank you very much, is to establish a core group of master trainers and others who are experts in the new extensionist core competencies. We started this process last year when we saw the need to strengthen capacities of extension and advisory services within Africa. And our target audience is really a number of different extension stakeholders in Africa, whether you're a manager, a country forum leader, whether you're in an educational institute, or an extension agent. We've seen a need to strengthen capacities at all these levels. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the new Extensionist Learning Kit. Fani and some of the others who are here on the webinar were there at the start. What happens during this training process, we're going to be using a blended approach. AFAAS is sending out the invitations and the registration, and then we'll start off with a sensitization online webinar using this Zoom platform. So today I'm sensitizing you about the introduction to the new extensionist. This sensitization is a very short 1-hour session, and it gives an overview of the module. It highlights key areas. Obviously, we can't train you on the entire module in 1 hour, but we're introducing you, and then you are meant to go online afterwards and complete the module using the online version that's set up by GFROS. The person who's presenting the webinar is going to serve as a resource person. So if you have questions about the module after this, you can always get in touch with me, and it will be the same for the other module presenters. What you need to do after this sensitization webinar is go to nelk.gfros.org and sign up if you're not already registered, and go and just go through the entire module online. I see that some of you are already in groups. For instance, the UFAS team is working as a group. You can work online, but you can also do a face-to-face training if it suits you in your country or wherever you are. So we can do self-directed learning, or we can form these study groups, depending what your situation is. We're going to be providing certificates of completion to all of those who go to the online version and complete that module. These will be issued by GFROS, and they will list all of the modules that you have completed. So you have to do the online course in order to receive the certificate. It looks something like this. It's a signed form by the chair and probably by Dr. Salim to say that you've completed excuse me, certain modules within the course. Hopefully you can do all of the modules, but this is just an example. So, because many of you, when you signed up for this webinar, indicated that you don't know very much about the new Extensionist Learning Kit, that's not the case for all, but for those of you who are new, I wanted to explain a little bit about the new Extensionist Learning Kit. So you can see that almost 50% of those who signed up said they've never heard about the new Extensionist Learning Kit, also called the NELK, the NELK. So there's a few people who've heard something about it, and then there's a very small number who've done some training in the NELK or trained others in the NELK. The aim of the new Extensionist Learning Kit is to equip extension professionals who can effectively function within your agricultural innovation system in your country with the ultimate aim to benefit producers and related actors, so all the different clientele of extension. And we have a whole session on professionalization of extension, which we'll cover in another module. The Learning Kit is a resource for different extension stakeholders, whether you're field staff, managers, lecturers, coming from an NGO or a farmer organization. The Learning Kit is informed by 12 core competencies for individual people rather than organizational level. Plus there's this introductory module that we're doing today, which is the introduction to the new extensionist. So in total, we have 13 modules as part of the new extensionist learning kit. The focus here is on the functional skills or the soft skills. So we're not going to be training you in crops or livestock or natural resource management. We're going to be training you in things that are core to an extension professional who needs to be able to communicate, to understand how adults learn, to facilitate group development, and so forth. And the learning kit can be used in a manner of different ways. You can do face-to-face training. The AFAAS group is doing a lot of that over the past year and a half. You can do self-directed learning, so you can just go online yourself and take any of the modules that you are interested in. Or you can also do blended learning, which is this combination of meeting face-to-face, whether it be virtual or in real life, or you can also do the online portion as well. The learning kit is to help users of the kit to better understand the concept of the new extensionist. And there's a long history of this topic, the new extensionist. We've written whole documents on it. You can find them all on the GFROS website. But the basic purpose is to really enhance your capacity to be a professional and to be able to be responsive and adaptive to the many different changes and things that are happening in extension and advisory services today. And ultimately, as I said, to improve the performance of the entire agricultural innovation system. I'm not reading the chat, so if you actually want to interject, please raise your hand or do something, because I'm just looking at my screen at the moment. And I see Mahesh has joined us. Welcome. And I understand that the Indian Council for Ag Research is going to be doing a training on this as well. So hope this is going to be useful. Basically, we have also an additional 3 modules, which are not part of the so-called core competencies, but they're also important for extension and advisory services. And we call the entire set of modules the NELK Plus. So we have the 13 modules that I mentioned, and I'm going to go over them by the end of today. Then we have a session called Evaluation of Extension Programs. We have one on policy advocacy, and we have one on nutrition-sensitive extension. So those are all modules that you can take online or download them and use them in your places of learning as well. For each module, there's 6 different products. There's a manual, which you can download from the GFROS website. There's a workbook for the learners that have a bunch of activities and tests and so forth. There's a lecturer's guide, which is especially useful for teachers. There's a PowerPoint presentation. There's the online module. I'll give you the website at the end. And then there's a set of YouTube videos, which the authors of the new extensionist explain a little bit about their modules. And there's actually 57 YouTube videos if you go on to the GFROS website. So each session has different activities to help different styles and types of learners to become knowledgeable and competent within the manuals and the workbooks. And each module has a pre-test and a post-test. So with the Caribbean Network, we're actually making them do the pre-test before the sensitization so we can understand better the before and after learning. But when you go to the online module, you're going to find a pre-test right as you get started so that we can see if you've actually improved your knowledge level by the end of the module. Okay, so that's an introduction to the overall New Extensionist Learning Kit, the NELK. Now I'm going to go actually into Module 1, the Introduction to the New Extensionist. Let me just check and see if there's any questions or points that people want to make. Let's see the chat here.
Yes,
so,
I
yeah,
already checked the chat.
Okay,
yeah, I replied
great
to most of the questions there.
Okay, that will be wonderful if you can keep doing that. Thanks.
Yes.
Okay,
Mainly, the question is, can we share the slide? Yeah, these slides after. Yeah, of course we can do that.
Yes, and all of the GFROS materials are what we call Creative Commons. So you're allowed to take these materials and use them, adapt them, change them, translate them, put them into your courses. You just need to credit GFROS as the source, but you're very welcome to use the materials as you need. So the New Extensionist, as I've explained, is this set of what we identified through a long process as a set of core competencies for extension providers, extension professionals. And it really takes the viewpoint of a systems approach, specifically the agricultural innovation systems. So it's really focused on the role of extension and advisory services within the broader system. It's really also a shift towards professionalization of extension and advisory services. We're pushing many of the countries and the country forums to go for registration and accreditation. Uganda Forum can tell you more about that, as well as the South Africa Country Forum. And we really take a pluralistic approach because in all the countries that we're working in, there's a multitude of extension providers, from the government to the non-government, civil society, farmer organizations, and even farmer-to-farmer extension. So we have a pluralistic approach of many different sectors providing advisory services. There's two study units within this first module. The first is the rationale for the New Extensionist, and the second goes into the actual capacities. What are the competencies of the New Extensionist? So after you complete this module, you should be able to explain, why do we need extension and advisory services, EAS, to develop better capacities? Why do you and how has your role changed as an extension agent, and why should it be changing? Secondly, you should be able to describe the capacities needed at different levels of extension and advisory services, from the field level to manager level, but also from the individual to the organizational and system level. You should also be able to describe the knowledge and skills that would improve your advisory services within the changed landscape that is extension and advisory services today. So looking first at the rationale for the New Extensionist, what we want you to do after you've completed this module, and you're going to do this in full with the online version, you're not going to get the full learning today because there's not enough time. So we talk in this first unit about the trends going on in ag development today, with a focus on globalization and the need for pluralism. We'll describe the development of AIS, agricultural innovation systems, to address the changing rural context and to deal with the challenges that we face today. And then you should also be able to describe the types of providers and their roles within the agricultural innovation system. So the first session, if you go into the workbook and the online module, it talks a lot about the changes going on today. Changes in farming, changes in livelihoods, changes in the way people do things in the rural areas and in the agriculture, even in the urban areas as well. There's a number of trends that are affecting rural development today, from globalization to migration, climate change and risk, and the growing youth population, the youth bulge that's going to be most prominent in Africa in the next decades. I think we're going to move to a second poll here. I hope you guys know how to do it now. We're going to ask you, and you're going to respond online, what are the major trends that you see in your country today? You can say globalization, migration, climate change and risk, youth bulge, or other. And sorry, you can only select one at this time. So select the most important one for your country or your region. If you do have something totally different, just check other and then please write it in the chat box so we can have a little discussion there. But please go ahead and answer the poll now. Okay, climate change and risk is the #1 trend that our participants are seeing today. So clearly that's a hot topic, a hot issue. And we have an entire module on risk that includes climate change. So if that's really important for you, you get your voice heard and tell us at AFAAS, that that's the module you'd like to hear from next. But there's a number of other topics that are addressed as well. So thanks, I'm gonna keep going. So the second session of the first study unit is about the position of extension, also called advisory services, within the agricultural innovation system. So those of you who've been around for a while and those of you who have studied extension understand that we've moved from this very linear and hierarchical sort of transfer of technology approach where innovations are developed on research stations and transferred to farmers via extension agents to a much more complex, messy, but yet I think much more realistic agricultural innovation system. And there's 3 points to bring out about the agricultural innovation system. One is all these different actors. So it's not just research extension farmers, but it's people like land agencies, credit agencies, the private sector, input suppliers, producer organizations, and exporters. There's a number of institutions, individuals, and actors that are contributing to innovation within the agricultural space. The second thing to point out here is the interactions between these different actors. So it's not just a simple transfer of technology or information, but it's farmers interacting with credit agencies and research interacting with extension and people sharing knowledge from the private sector to the public sector. There's a whole lot of interactions that occur within the agricultural innovation system. And then the third element is the supporting, the surrounding government policy and regulatory framework that influences and determines how people can interact. So it really influences the agricultural innovation system. If you look at Ethiopia, for instance, there's a strong focus on the public sector. And while the private sector and non-governmental actors are there, they're not so much stimulated to take part in the agricultural innovation system as, say, in Uganda or Kenya, for instance. So the government, the policy environment really influences how we can interact. We define innovation as any new knowledge that's introduced and utilized or used in a social or economic process. So it's not an invention, it's not something new to the world, it's just something new to you or to your farming system or to the agricultural innovation system. We don't have to look at just technologies on farm. We can have innovations within value addition. We can have innovations within the way farmers are organized. There's a lot of different innovations that contribute to rural development. So if we look at this different role, so think of that linear pathway I showed you from research to extension to farmers, and then compare it to the agricultural innovation system. There's huge implications for the role of an extension agent and of the extension system within those two different models of extension and advisory service. So instead of just providing a conduit or the link between research and farmers, instead extension is really here to identify gaps in service delivery, provide information and services like usual, but also to facilitate interaction between the actors, because the extension agents are the ones who know the farmers, who know the agricultural innovation system, and understand how the system works. And they can really broker relationships. They have a big role in coordinating and partnering within the agricultural innovation system. The second study unit is on agricultural extension capacities. Is everyone still there? I've lost all of the participants.
We are
Audrey?
still there.
Okay,
we listen to you. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. So the second study unit in this first module is really to understand what's expected of you as a professional extension officer or agent, and to understand and describe the core competencies that are part of the new Extensionist Learning Kit. When we talk about capacity development, there's a lot in this module that's all about GFROS principles, the strategic lines of GFROS, but I'm not going to cover these today because of time. You will cover them when you go to the online module. But as well as the agricultural innovation system approach, this capacity development strategy that was developed by FAO is the other big sort of paradigm or model that guides GFROS and the new Extensionist Learning Kit. So what this FAO model says is that we need capacities not just for people, not just for individuals, not just for the extension agent, but we need organizational capacity, and we also need institutional capacity, or capacity for the system, capacity for the enabling environment. So we'll talk about the individual capacities today, and that's what the focus of the new Extensionist Learning Kit is. It's on the individual capacities. But if we think about, you know, all the changes going on in the world today and the challenges that we're facing, it becomes very apparent that we need organizational capacity for, let's say, AFAAS, or let's say for the Ugandan extension services or the Ethiopian extension services, to be able to form alliances, to be able to partner, to be able to advocate. There's a lot of different capacities that are needed at the organizational level as well. And then the system needs capacity too, in order to put in these policies and rules of the game, regulations. The system needs capacity as well. But we're going to be focusing on the bottom part of this pyramid at the individual level with the new Extensionist Learning Kit. So we define competency here as the ability to do something efficiently and effectively. And the GFROS Consortium on Extension Education and Training outlined a set of core competencies that are aimed at promoting professionalism within extension and advisory services. As I've said like 3 times already, this is divided into 13 modules for the new Extensionist Learning Kit, the NELK. You can see here the consortium that was launched in 2013. So GFROS had a meeting here in Pretoria, where Fanny and I are based. We met to discuss policies and some other areas which were also of importance to GFROS. But this group of individuals that you see here really were promoting and actually sat down and formed this consortium as a side event as part of this meeting in Pretoria. It was a lot of people from educational institutes, but it was others as well who are big champions of professionalizing extension and getting the core competencies out there. So this set of people and individuals and experts identified these core competencies and have been championing the new Extentionists since 2013. Excuse me, sorry. So here is these 13 core competency modules that I've been talking about. And we're not going to go into detail on each of these. I have a set of slides that describes all of these, and you can actually get a flyer that describes in more detail what's in all of these modules. Some of them are much longer than others. So module 1 and 2 and number 4, the gender one, they're all quite short. But some of them, I think the value chains module and the ag entrepreneurship module, also the program management are really long, and they might need to be split into several different sessions. But what we're doing today is the introduction to the new extension is. So it basically sets the scene and says why we're doing this and why these competencies are important. Module 2 goes through extension approaches and tools. It talks about, the history and the paradigm shift of extension and advisory services, how methods have changed over the years and what some new methods are, etc. Module 3 talks about program management. Module 4 is about professional ethics. Module 5, adult learning for behavioral change. Module 6 is about basic knowledge management and extension. So we initially planned to have a module just on ICTs, but we actually ended up widening that module to include knowledge management and other communication. Module 7, Introduction to Facilitation for Development. This is a really critical part of extension and advisory services if you're working in the field. Module 8 is community mobilization. Sorry, it shouldn't say communication mobilization. Module 9 is about farmer organizational development. Number 10 is the role of extension in value chains. That's the really long one. Module 11 is on agricultural entrepreneurship. We discussed that at the GFROS annual meeting in 2016 in Cameroon. Module 12 is on gender in extension and advisory services. It also addresses youth and other diversity issues too. And then finally, like I mentioned, Module 13 is about risk management. So this addresses climate change, but also other issues of management to risk and adaptation in extension and advisory services. Those of you who are planning to attend the GFROS annual meeting in Jamaica in September this year, this is going to be sort of the topic of the GFROS annual meeting, is about how to adapt and to risk and so forth. Okay, so I gave you those list of competencies. I don't know if it's useful to stay on that slide or go to the next one, but we're going to have a little poll. I think the question is, first, what are you weakest in, or which do you need the most competency from your personal? Okay, sorry, we're going to start with the strongest. So of these 13 modules, which do you feel like you're the strongest on? What do you know the most about? Where would you do the best if you took the pre-test right now? So please go ahead and respond to the poll. We'll give you a couple minutes for that. All right, so 21% extension approaches and tools, and then quite even split about adult education, knowledge management, facilitation for development, community mobilization. So this is interesting. A lot of people say they are strong in ag entrepreneurship, very interesting, and then also in risk management. And then gender is also there. So great, interesting. I'm not sure if we're going to have time for the weakest. Do we want to have that second poll? Do you guys want to state which ones you're weakest in, or you want to have more time for questions? I think we've got 15, 20 minutes still to go, and we're almost finished. Let's have the second poll. Okay, which of these competencies do you feel that you're weakest on, or you most need? You know, you don't know enough and you really need it for your job. So answer, again, either in 2 parts. Okay, so the weakest, which do you need the most training in? So, okay, I see adult learning for behavioral change is quite high. You should take my class that I teach at the University of Pretoria. Ag entrepreneurship is also the weakest as well as one of the strongest, or maybe most interesting to all of you, as well as risk management. So I think those modules 11 and 13 getting a lot of answers because you have to answer questions in both. But there's a high result also for the role of extension in value chains. So not to worry, we're going to cover all these modules. The master trainers and other experts are going to be leading us through a series of webinars on all of these. And we'll start, as I said, with the sensitization webinar, but then it's up to your initiative to go online and complete the module and get the certificate. Now, the certificates are only from GFROS. It's not from your government. It's not from your, you know, standards committee in your country. So if you want that to be incorporated into your country, you know, as part of the norms and standards, that's something to talk to AFAAS about. But I'm going to close the poll and just go to the final discussions here. I think a lot of times when we list this long set of competencies, the core functional competencies for the new extensionist, on top of all your technical competencies that you already need as an extension professional, people start to say, you know, are we looking for a superwoman or a superman, you know, which is pretty much what extension is in my opinion. But anyway, I think there's a big debate in among scholars about, you know, whether an extension professional should be a generalist or a specialist. But what our stance here is with the new extensionist is that we are trying to provide this generalist type of person. They do have a specialty training as their formational training, but then they know a lot about different functional competencies, but they very much act as a broker who can support you if your farmer groups that you're working with need something on risk management and you're not the expert. You still are the person who can broker and facilitate that relationship and get the farmers or your other clientele the training that you need. So that's our stance on generalists versus specialists. Questions for discussion, feel free to ask whatever questions you have, but whether these competencies resonate with you, is this what you're talking about in your country? Do you think these competencies are going to change for the futures and we're going to need a whole set of new competencies in the next 10 years? How can we best instill these competencies within the AFAAS community, within your country? Let's hold those thoughts. The other thing I wanted to do today before our discussion is tell you about next steps. So this first bullet here is the link to the module. So if you're gonna, let me show you this slide. This is what the module looks like. So if you go to the New Extensionist Learning Kit site, in your top right corner, you're gonna have a login, your username and password. If you've never done it before, they'll ask you to register. So you click on register, you log in, and in case of difficulties, you contact NELK@gfros.org. Apparently, there's been a lot of trouble with the anti-spam feature here. So if it asks you what's 4 + 7 and you type it in and it still says you failed the spam test, talk to NELK or talk to Ingrid. Ingrid Oliveira at the GFROS Secretariat is the person to contact in case of difficulties with login. So I can't help you, Andre can't help you, Max can't help you with logging into the GFROS site. Oh, only Ingrid can help you, unfortunately. But basically, you need to register. If you're already a GFROS member, you can use that login. But you log in the top right, like I mentioned. Contact Ingrid if you have problems. But then you see here, once you're logged in, you can watch the videos, but then you will go to the modules here. And then it's going to ask you, you know, select a module to start. And you might want to start with a new extensionist. In fact, I recommend that you do. It will do the pretest. You'll do some reading. You'll do some exercises. You'll go through the entire module in much more detail than I went through today. And then you'll take a post-test. And then Ingrid and the GFROS Secretariat will have your information. They'll know who has completed which modules. And we do plan to be giving certificates and recognition at the upcoming Africa-wide, Max will have to tell me how to say it properly, the Agricultural Extension Week that's coming up in Abidjan in November this year. So I think with that, questions, you can talk to Max. If you have questions specifically about this module, you can talk to me, and then with the online NELK, talk to Ingrid. So yeah, let me turn it over to question and answer comments from any of you now. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Christine. Yeah, now we have two tools to ask and answer questions. The first one, if Christine can shut the presentation now so that we all come back on the screen, and you can unmute yourself, put also your video on. please raise your hand and ask your question. That's the first way to ask questions. The second one is just write it on the chat so that everybody can see it, and we will reply to your questions one by one. Can we do like that? Yes. So, who has some urgent question now? Yes, please.
Yes, Andrea.
Yes, Beatrice, we can hear you. Go
Okay,
ahead.
you can hear. We are here with the AFAAS team. We are 8 of us, and we are very Christians welcome with the training today, and we hope we'll be able to carry on with the next. Actually, if you can see on the screen, there are many other members of AFAAS who are from the different areas, like Hegesa, like Thelma, and Steve Hodges. They are all members of AFAAS. So we are really getting very serious with this training. We've been sharing on the chat, and you told us that we should share with everybody. I think let's see how we can do that. But all the same, we're happy, and these are different members. We have one from the Mlimisa, it's an AA extension, Farm Radio International. We have Land Care Network, and many others, and even a farm organization here. We are all here. Thank you very much. And also Sirona Doom, who is also our member, who is like
Yes, Beatrice, I think, yeah, we lost you.
Hello?
But in any way, oh, yeah, is someone, yeah.
Hello?
Please go ahead. You first.
I was asking, yes, I was asking if I open the module and then I fail complete, does it mean that I have to complete with it, or does it have a time limit for completion?
No, there's no time limit for completion. You can go in and come back and save your work, so don't worry about that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, congratulations, AFAAS. Congratulations, Beatrice and the team. I think we should organize things like that.
Actually, we are part of the agriculture show, which has million rounds. Yeah.
Okay, let's hear from Retabile. Retabile. Okay. Someone else wants to ask a question?
Yes.
Yes, Davido.
Okay, thank you. I thank dear Christine Davis for presentation, and I just want to ask if we can get this presentation in French. Can we get it in French when we go to GFAS website to download the tools? That is my question. Thank you.
The modules are not available in French on the GFAS website. However, some people have informally translated certain modules into French. For instance, Andre can maybe share with you some of his translations. However, next week on July 25th, we're going to have the training in French on this very module. So I hope Patrice and others are going to be able to translate the slides by then as well. So we're working on the French and other language versions, but at the moment, everything that's on the GFAS website is in English. Andre, do you want to add something?
Yeah, no, just to confirm and to invite the French-speaking people that we have the French session next week like this. So starting from now, we will have the English version, the English session on the third Thursday, and the fourth Thursday of the week of the month we have in French. Yeah, You just confirm it on the chat. So 25th of July, we have the French session for Module 1.
Okay, thank you very much.
Some other inputs, last inputs or questions, suggestions for the next module? Well, if there's no other comment, maybe from my side, I would just recommend that we come in time, because we started, I think we started 5 minutes later, and there were only like 15 persons. And now we are 22 actually, but we are going to stop because the 1 hour is finished. Some of our people have some other appointments and duties, so let's be more punctual next time. That is my first suggestion. Someone else has some other suggestion while we are closing here?
Just that we welcome feedback from any of you about the process and how to go about the webinars itself, the timing, the inputs, the speakers. So this is for you to learn, and we want to make it as user-friendly as possible. Thanks.
This is for us. This is for the AFAAS members, the AFAAS community. So we have to take maximum advantage of these webinars. You can send mails to me, Christine, and Max, so that we improve how we organize these webinars. And yeah, so let's meet again after 1 month, same time, Thursday, 1 hour. Maybe if needed, we can extend to 1 hour and a half. But for now, we agreed for 1 hour each third Thursday of the month. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, Christine.
Thanks, Andre, for organizing it.
Yeah. Thank you.
All
Goodbye.
right. Have a good afternoon.